And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hey everybody, welcome back to your RBLR Rays show. I'm Ben. I just got back from my paid administrative leave. Eureka pays me under the table to take vacation sometimes. So it's good to be back. How's it going, Zach? Good morning.
Morning. It's going really well. Missed you last week. It was fun having Ulysses on, but always missed the partner in crime.
Yeah, no, that was a great episode. I listened to it like as soon as I got my Spotify notification thingy. It was good. I really liked the bullpen conversation and all that. So yeah, good stuff.
It was very good stuff.
We just wrapped up. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I think we got a bit of a delay, actually.
I think we have a minor delay, just a little bit. A little bit. I think are we back?
I think you're frozen.
Am I frozen?
Oh, wait, never mind. You're not frozen. It was frozen for a second. Okay. We'll just keep going. Cool.
Yep.
So we had a fun week where we wrapped up a series win against the Dodgers. We ended up dropping a series in Chicago against the Cubs. A couple roster moves happening with Fleming going to the IL with some elbow soreness. We're going to get some MRI results on that soon, I'm sure. And the Rays made I don't want to call it like a small trade or a big trade either. I feel like it's like a medium level trade, acquiring Robert Stephenson from Pittsburgh for shortstop prospect that I really liked, Alika Williams. Unfortunate, but you got to give up good players to get good players. So, any thoughts on the big things that happened this week?
Yeah, I think it was really good to get that series win over the Dodgers. I mean, even though it's an interleague series, which, I think probably matters a little bit less than even an American League series. It was a great series. It was very exciting. The juice, that ball was juiced 1,000,000%. I don't know, that game was complete nonsense, but it was very entertaining. And then the Cubs series, we'll probably get into it more, but it was so clear that they just needed to get home. It was so obvious. These guys need a day off so bad. It was a little bit of a shame because we got some really good bullpen performances, but they just needed to get home. And then I'm actually kind of excited about that trade. It's never fun to lose a prospect that you've kind of been following. It's one of the downsides of getting into prospects and being engaged with that is that when one gets traded, you feel like you lost something because you've been following them for so long. You've been following their development, and he's kind of been continuing to develop positively. So but at the same time, you have really good middle infield depth throughout the organization. So it's not the end of the world. And I think that Stephenson, who they acquired, I think has a real chance to make a significant impact on the team if they make a couple of some small adjustments. To just the type of pitches he's throwing. It almost looks to me like, and you kind of mentioned this before, that he's throwing pitches. His fastball, it looks like he's throwing a pitch that isn't really designed for his arm, if that makes sense. I watched a video a little while ago on how some pitchers shouldn't throw certain pitches because of the way that their arm is built, and so it affects their most, the highest, ability of their spin and all that. And it almost like he's throwing that fast, that his four-seamer is not what he should be throwing. So it'll be interesting to see what the Rays do to adjust his arsenal a little bit to maybe play more to his natural strengths as opposed to forcing him into something.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. His slider is definitely the outlier pitch there. It's a really strong slider, a good gyro movement with a really interesting spin axis on it, where he kind of it looks like it's going to break away from right-handed batters in towards lefties, but it ends up kind of gyrating about halfway through, and he gets really high. He has a really high spin rate on it, so it really kind of takes off and almost looks like it's going one direction and then it darts back the other way, even though it physically can't do that. That's impossible. But to the batter, it looks like it's doing that. So he gets he has one of the best sliders in the league, but he also has one of the worst fastball. And not the worst fastball, but some of the worst fastball results in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. But Bendix kind of hinted at it that, he's a platoon neutral guy and they're going to try to use him in different roles. So I think he's, destined for a high leverage role in this bullpen, but, we'll have to wait and see. And he's only under team control through this season. So if they do plan on, doing anything else with him, it's going to have to be on some kind of contract extension. But yeah, just a really great tool. He already has the best stuff plus in the bullpen right now. Like he comes in, he's actually it's the second best stuff plus behind Jake Diekman. So
yeah,
he's already a top 3 arm in terms of quality. So it's just going to be interesting to see what they do with him.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it kind of almost feels like right now with with Fairbanks back on the IL and you Adam is your number 1 guy. I feel like Diekman is becoming your number 2 guy, and maybe Stephenson slides into that number 3 role along with like Poche, and some of the other arms that are kind of like vying around for that spot. And then it'll be interesting to see when Fairbanks gets back. Who's that number 3 guy? I think Diekman's making a really strong case for it. It'll be interesting to see if Stephenson can kind of push him a little bit, and then they can have a good competition for that 3-4 spot in the bullpen. I think that could be a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, right now, based on like the usage, it's, assuming Fairbanks is healthy, Fairbanks is the number 1. Adam is the number 2. Like they get the most saves and holds. Poche is ahead of Beeks in hold and save opportunities. So Poche would technically be the number 3 there. And then Beeks gets like the next most holds and saves. Even though he's been opening a lot, he's probably going to do that a bit less now going forward.
Right.
But who knows? And then, yeah, it's kind of just up for grabs after Beeks. So it's going to be pretty fun to watch. And if you want to continue watching this journey along with us, this bullpen figuring it out journey, you can make sure you like, subscribe, and share our podcast wherever you listen or consume it, whatever you're doing it. If you're watching it on YouTube, which, you want the full experience, you're doing that. But just listening, subscribing, liking, sharing, all that stuff helps us put together some great content for you all. And even if you hate us, keep following along, because it feels good to hate people sometimes. So just keep doing that for yourself, I guess.
Yeah, keep following along. Maybe we'll say something slightly weird and you can make an edit of it and put it on your Twitter account to make fun of us. You're welcome to do so. We'll probably, I will probably say something stupid at some point during this podcast. So feel free to take advantage of that and just watch along.
Yeah, awesome. We got some really good stuff from Twitter this week, like questions, replies, all that stuff, and we'll kind of sprinkle it in. But kind of going back to the Stephenson trade, do you expect any major trades or any other trades for the Rays this season, or maybe near the deadline?
So I've been thinking about this more as we get closer to the deadline. I think at the beginning of the year, I would have said that there was a room for some upgrade in the lineup, and that I thought maybe maybe a corner outfield spot could have been a place for upgrade. But to be honest with you, now that Josh Lowe has developed the way he has, there kind of is no need for it. I don't really see any need for an upgrade in the lineup. I just don't think there's any, there's nobody who I'm like, man, get that guy out of there. There's no spot in the lineup where I think there's a massive upgrade is needed. So then you look to the pitching side of things. And then, so the question then becomes, how much do you trust what you have in the farm system? And when you look at, I think you have 2 options. I think you could either go for a bridge starter, having someone else to, eat some innings as a starter, or maybe a high end guy. But I mean, if you think about it, you have 3 high end guys right now in your starting rotation between McClanahan, Eflin, and Glasnow. So that's what you need for the postseason rotation. So to me, I don't think it really makes sense to go after a high-end starter, because those guys are so expensive. Like a high-end starter is maybe the most expensive thing, at the trade deadline, because they're so few and far between and people just don't want to give them up. So I don't think that's a good use of the Rays resources. Could they go for a high leverage bullpen guy, considering the fact that Fairbanks has been a little bit injured, which I don't think is going to linger, but it is fair to say he has been a little bit injured this season. Could they go for a high end bullpen guy? Maybe. I mean, who's available, I think, is kind of the question there. Is Alexis Diaz from the Reds going to be available at the deadline? If he is, I would love to go for him, but he's going to obviously be really expensive. So I'm not opposed to them going after someone in the bullpen to kind of bolster that and give them another high leverage option, but I don't think they need to. I think it's one of those things where they're going to make a lot of phone calls. And if somebody, is willing to make a good deal, I think they will do it. I really don't see them trading any of their major league talent. I just don't see it, because I don't think the need is there. at this time. I think they could trade some major league ready talent that's in the minors, but I don't see any of the guys on the roster, like on the 26-man roster, or being moved at any time this season. Really, I just don't see it.
Yeah, so that actually kind of leads into this one question that we got where they asked, could they trade away Margot, Harold, or Mejia and replace them with a cheaper option? Or is everyone playing well enough to be untouchable?
I mean, the only one who I would say, I mean, Margot is an interesting one because, and I think people would say he's an odd man out because of his hitting, but you have to remember that he plays center field. And I don't think any of the other Rays outfield options right now are really going to be playing a great center field. Like Josh Lowe is not a great center fielder.
No.
Siri is your center fielder, but if you need him to be spelled at any time, your other options are not going to be a great upgrade. So I think, having two center fielders on your roster is valuable. So could they maybe trade for someone who would be cheaper? It's possible. Oh, did I just type about? Am I here still?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, that was weird. Anyway, I think Mejia is definitely Mejia is an interesting case because he's been getting a lot less playing time than even I think we expect. I mean, he's getting a lot less playing time than I expected because Bethancourt's been playing so well. So I think it's deserved that Bethancourt's been getting most of the playing time, but Mejia's just not been out there as much, and so I think there's a chance maybe he gets moved. But I don't know how high it's kind of weird because if you move on from a player who's not playing well, what's their value? They don't have a whole lot of value at the moment. But I mean, he is a switch hitting catcher who I think does have some value. So maybe they move him. They have some decent options moving up through the system. But I think if we're ranking like the likeliness, I think that Mejia has a decent chance to not be on this team by the end of the year, just based on how well Bethancourt's been playing. But that's the only one of those three that I see a really high chance of getting moved.
I don't think they're really going to move anybody. Even those three guys, like Mejia's had 93 plate appearances this year. To make a call about a player after 93 plate appearances is pretty harsh. Like I'm pretty sure they gave Yoshi Tsutsugo like 150 before they decided to move on, and he couldn't play defense. Whereas Mejia is actually his skill set matches these rule changes really well with the strong arm and pretty good blocking ability, surprisingly. So I don't really think they'll move on from him. And then Margot, like you said, nobody else can play center field defense. Like if you think back to the times when we had it was, KK was a center fielder and then excuse me, Malik Smith was the next guy up, and we remember him trying to play center field and it was not good. So if you're, banking on Josh Lowe to be your everyday center fielder, this team is gonna he's a great bat, but he's not an everyday center fielder. Margot can at least do that, and he did that when Siri was on the IL, so Margot is probably not going anywhere. Harold, as much as, I still think he's a placeholder to an extent, he's a really good placeholder. You don't want, Oslavas Basabe coming up and getting inconsistent playing time. You don't want Kyle Manzardo coming up and you don't want the inconsistent playing time for guys you're trying to develop. So Harold is, unless he's, absolutely falls off a cliff, like a lot of his numbers show that he's supposed to be doing, but he's not because he's just a weird backspin fiend, then whatever. We're just going to ride that over performance into next year, and then maybe we'll have the same conversation in the off season. But at the same time, nobody's really untouchable except for Wander, just because that's how the Rays operate. They're going to listen to calls on every single player. And they're going to make offers on a lot of the high-end talent, offers that they think are fair market value. And prices are going to be really high because, like we saw last year, expanded playoffs. Everybody still thinks they're in it. So, yeah, I mean, this was Robert Stephenson. That's a pretty steep price for him. He's a good reliever, but Alika Williams, he could play. His glove is major league ready right now. So
Yep.
he could play defense in the major leagues tomorrow and be an above average defender, probably a gold glove caliber guy in the future. But his bat's coming along. He's definitely improving, but that just goes to show like these prices are really high right now. So if you want a big name relief pitcher, you want a major trade, you're going to be giving up like your top prospects because they're not going to destroy this clubhouse chemistry that they've built for a couple of years now. I read somewhere it was in The Only Rule Is It Has to Work, that baseball book that Eureka actually gifted me a little while ago. I'm almost done with it. I finally got around to reading it, but clubhouse chemistry, just based on like the things that players can disagree on and have differences about, they call them fault lines. That's worth about like 3 wins per year. So when you're starting to like take guys out of the clubhouse, you're actually kind of hurting your ability to, the difference between an 87 win team and a 90 win team that, 87 might not make the playoffs, 90 probably does. That could be your clubhouse chemistry. So you don't want to take out a guy like Harold Ramirez. You don't want to take out a guy like Mejia or Margot. Like these are really valuable pieces, not just of like the team from a roster performance perspective, but like the chemistry is really important, and it's not some weird like mystical thing. It's like they can measure chemistry, and I guarantee the Rays have some kind of method for measuring their clubhouse chemistry and ways to improve it, or things like that. So you don't tear down a team that's the first team to 40 wins since the 2001 Mariners. You don't take guys out of that roster. So no need to do that. But I mean, these are questions that people are asking. So, we do kind of have to talk about that.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that would make it interesting is like, let's say Harold gets on another heater into like through June and into July a little bit, and he looks like awesome. Is there a chance that a team who's desperate for some hitting throws a crazy offer at the Rays? Sure, that could happen. I think that like the only scenario in which they're trading any of these guys are which a player like Harold, who probably doesn't have a long term future with the team, and there are players who they could promote to fill those spots. He goes on a heater, and there's teams that need something to like save their season, and they just need some hitting, and they throw a crazy offer out at the Rays. The Rays might be like, sure, we'll promote, Manzardo or Meade or whatever, and we'll give you Harold Ramirez for whatever top prospect or relief pitcher you want to send us that's way overpaying for him. I think that could happen, but I think that's the only scenario in which I don't think they're going to look to move him, but I think if someone gives them a really good offer after he goes on like a heater, which he kind of has been recently. So I think if that were to happen, they might listen and they might even do it. But I think the only way they're going to do it is if someone's going to overpay for him.
Yeah, those are pretty much the only like big trades that are going to be happening, are teams overpaying for guys. And maybe the Rays overpaid for Robert Stephenson. It's hard to say because the trade happened literally yesterday, and we won't know for at least like 6 or 7 years probably. So revisit this episode, bookmark it, whatever, save it for later, and look back in 6 or 7 years when Alika Williams has had a chance to establish himself on a major league roster, and we'll see. Who knows? Maybe Robert Stephenson's still around by then with their team. Who knows? But that's a whole other conversation, like wins and losses and trades, because you never really know for like at least half a decade later, especially when prospects are involved. But something that felt like it happened half a decade ago is that Dodgers series. I feel like that was, it was last month technically, but I don't know. I guess it's been a while since I've been on the podcast, so it feels even longer. But any thoughts from that final game in the Dodgers series?
Just that there is anyone who doesn't believe that there is a juiced ball for like, for those primetime, syndicated games, just you're lying to yourself. Just watch that game. Like that was complete nonsense. I feel really bad for Josh Fleming. He's like, my biggest takeaway is that was a rough go for Josh Fleming. I felt really bad. It was funny because as that game was happening, I gave Fleming my arm of the week, and I as soon as I got off, we stopped recording. I turned on the game and was like, yikes, that was not. And it's like, how much of that is his fault? Like, who knows? Like that was a classic example of, well, sorry, kids, you're just going to wear it. Like that's, that is what it is, man. You just go out there and soak up a couple innings. And the bullpen, I was actually kind of surprised because like at a certain point, like it got to like 10 to 11, like not like early in the game, but like decently early enough in the game where I'm like, are we going to see like a 20 run? Someone's going to score 20 runs in this game, but it kind of just quit. Like the scoring kind of just quit after like the 7th inning. And we're like, okay, all right. So I don't know. Maybe they switched the balls halfway through the game. They're like, okay, this is exciting enough. We need to tone this down or people are going to get a little too suspicious. And they just switch the balls out halfway through the game. Who knows? But it was a wild game. Great to win that series. I mean, it's another example of how people are saying, or casting aspersions at the Rays record. Well, the 2 times that we have played an NL team that was the number 1 team by record in the National League, we swept the first one and then we beat them the second time. So like, our record against number 1 teams at the time of playing them in the National League is 5-1. So, I'm really not interested in any of the hot takes of the Rays. The Rays record is weak or they'll be getting lucky. They're frauds. No, they're not. Like watch the games, actually look deeper than some, surface level stats. The Rays are for real. And that's all I needed to see to just continue to prove that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Fleming really did wear it. He had a pretty good attitude. He was like, he kind of brushed off the outing. Nobody's going to say it because they don't want to get like in trouble with the league, but none of the coaches or players are going to say, hey, I think the ball was kind of weird today. But they were definitely using like the Aaron Judge, happy, fun 2019 baseball. Yeah. So it is what it is. But yeah, he definitely wore that and he got a well-deserved, hopefully this is a phantom IL stint for his hard work where he gets a nice little paid vacation, but he conveniently is going on the IL when the Rays need to add 2 guys to the active roster, 2 pitchers. So it kind of worked out. Armstrong is going to probably be added either today or tomorrow. And then Robert Stephenson's going to be added either today or tomorrow. And also somebody in an article from like 2019, when I was trying to learn more about this guy, they called him Bob Steve, which I think is a pretty good nickname. So maybe we can call Robert Stephenson Bob Steve. I think that's pretty good. A couple less syllables. But anyways, assuming this Fleming injury is not a phantom IL stint, we did have kind of an interesting question here. They asked, is it time to question the Rays training staff and the way the team handles their pitchers with all the arm injuries we've had this year?
No, it is. No, I don't think so. I think that, we've talked about this a little bit before, that a lot of the Rays pitchers who have had serious arm injuries while wearing a Rays uniform, those injuries are happening as a result of things that happened long before they ever, arrived in Tampa, whether it's the way they were treated in the minor leagues or in college, or most of these injuries are as a result of the way that their arms were treated before they got here. When you talk to anyone that has been on the Rays pitching staff after they leave here, they all, sing the praises of the staff and how they're using them and the way that they're being treated as a part of the team. And like, just because that some, when you look across the league, pitching injuries are part of the game. It just happens, and while it's unfortunate for sure that, that these injuries are happening, when you look at the players who've gotten injured, they're high-risk injury players who the Rays gave a chance to, which most teams were not willing to give a chance to, especially not in the role that we're giving them the option to perform in. No one else is giving them an opportunity. And so we took, you take the risk, sometimes that risk doesn't work out and people get hurt. It happens. But the Rays are not, there's nothing underhanded. There's no like thing that the Rays are doing that's like hurting pitchers' arms. Like that's just not true. When you like, there's no evidence of that. Everybody who you talk to, like surely someone would have said something if this was a real thing. It just isn't. It just happens. And it's just, it's by the nature of the fact that the Rays are willing to give people chances. And you know what? Sometimes when you give people chances to succeed when they've, had an injury history, sometimes they get injured again. And that's okay. But it's definitely not the Rays' fault. It's just unfortunate. And I think it's also, some of these injuries are happening when they've had these long stretches of games. And that's just is what it is. Like when you play a lot of games back to back to back, sometimes that stuff's going to happen and people are going to get that wear and tear. And so if you want to get mad at someone, get mad at the people who scheduled those games that way. Don't get mad at the race training staff, because that's not who's to blame for any of this. And I just think that the people that are doing that, I don't know what their motive is for saying that. I don't think you can be really objective looking at the Rays and say that it's the training staff's fault. I think there's some ulterior motive to suggesting that the Rays training staff, which maybe we won't get into, but I think there's definitely some ulterior motives to suggesting that Rays training staff is bad, but it's just not true.
Yeah, going back to the scheduling thing, I something I thought of a little while ago. I'd like to see the next CBA that they negotiate be more favorable to like workloads and stuff. Because like in the NBA, I'm pretty sure no team plays more than like 3 games in a row. And granted, they have a shorter season, but like I don't know. I feel like they should have like maximum of like 2 series, and then every team gets an automatic off day. Like there should not be like any 16 game in a row stretches where one of those days is a travel day. Like
Agreed.
feels like maybe every 3, like you play like 9 games, you get a day off. Every 6, I don't know. They should, like in the minors, every team is pretty much off every Monday except for like, makeup games and the occasional like whatever game that they got to do. They got to get it in the schedule, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, they definitely, I think the players could leverage, this kind of these injuries that we've seen like pile up, especially with the pitch clock. It seems like there's some kind of correlation there, but the jury's still out on that. But yeah, injuries happens to everybody. The Rays just, take in pitchers that are higher risk, like you said. And I guarantee every single pitcher that's gone down with an injury would do it all again, just because, you kind of chase that. Like you chase the glory and the elite performance that might come with, throwing 100 miles an hour when your body is. I don't think anybody's body is really built for that. There are very few that can sustain that for a long time. And yeah, you live fast, die young. It's just the nature of the beast.
It's professional sports. It's the same argument you see in football. Like, is it the coach's fault that players run at each other at high speeds and hit each other and sometimes get hurt? No, it's not. Like, it's the nature of the beast. And it just is what it is. And again, going back to the scheduling thing, like, I think if, I always try to compare it to like, what we've, in our perspective, like I've had to work 10 days in a row sometimes with my schedule at my work. And after that 10th day, I feel miserable. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to do anything at all. I want to stay in bed and do nothing. So I can't imagine having to work like 29 days in a row without an off day. I would be miserable. So like, I think because they're playing a game, we sort of separate ourselves from that. But you're looking at, players that are physically exerting themselves to the highest degree for 29 days in a row. Someone is bound to get injured if you're doing that. And like, that's just what it is. And so I think I think you're 100% right. There should be some sort of rule where like after, every 10th day is an off day, no matter what. Just figure it out. Like if you have to extend the season by 2 weeks to accommodate that, whatever, like figure it out. I think it should be a no-brainer. And the fact that it isn't is just another proof that, the people that are at the top of baseball do not always have the interest of the players' best interest in heart.
No, I mean, it's, a money-making machine. And speaking of the scheduling, the Rays wrapped up that, I guess, the morning game against the Dodgers, and they had to jump on a plane right away and head over to Chicago so they could play a day game against the Cubs. And then they were just completely gassed that entire series, but they do kind of steal that last game, and they only end up losing the series on the road there to the Cubs 2-1 instead of getting swept. Anything meaningful we can take away from that series?
No, like, I mean, I think there's been a couple series like this. I don't think there's anything meaningful. Both teams scored a grand total of 11 runs the whole series. Like it was a team. I give a lot of credit to the Rays for performing as well as they did, because they were gassed. The schedule was against them. You had really great performances from guys like, Taj. He had a great performance. Really, very, very happy with his performance. McClanahan gets a loss because of a error, which I think is ridiculous. I think that I have no concept of how that was not scored an error, and how McClanahan gets the loss there. It's beyond me. It's just another proof that wins and losses are a made up stat. They're the made up stat of made up stats. Completely useless, because there's no world which McClanahan deserves a loss there. Like it just is not. So just throw it out. You got to win out of that series. I think that's better than I could have expected given the circumstances. Just throw it out. Just be happy we got to win and forget about it.
Yeah, the results from that series are whatever. It's an interleague game on the road, end of May. Like, it's very insignificant. But I really did like Taj in that first game. I thought, he was facing a pretty bad offense, but I thought he was really good with the strike throwing. And we got a question from Twitter asking, how much longer does Taj stay in the majors this year?
To be honest with you, I think there's a decent chance that he stays up. Like, especially considering the way that the injuries are looking, and none of the guys who are like the bulk guys are performing well enough to justify sending Taj back down right now. So at the moment, I'm kind of tempted to say that he may be here for the rest of the year. Like, I mean, I don't think that's the optimal situation. I think the optimal would be him cooking a little longer in Durham. But to be honest with you, I don't see, he's performing well. So, unless he has a really bad streak and it's very obvious he needs more time to cook, I think there's a good chance they let him run it out and give him a full run of the season and see how he performs. I think that, if you're from a purely winning games perspective, I think Taj Bradley gives you a better chance to win baseball games than anyone else who could be starting every fifth day for the Rays right now. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I don't expect him to go back down. And if he does, like you said, it's to work on something or maybe some kind of workload management thing. But I mean, given the injuries to Springs, to Rasmussen, I mean, we did have Glasnow out for a little bit. We had Eflin out for a little bit. They kind of need a starting pitcher. So I'm really glad they didn't trade that starting pitching depth. That some fans were kind of not expecting, but thinking like, oh, we have so many good starters and this whole rotation is really good. Maybe we can trade one of them. But no, you can never have too much pitching depth. So really good move by the Rays to not make any moves early in the year when they kind of had that surplus of starting pitching depth.
Yep, and it's a great example of you have to think of it from a longevity perspective. You can't take a snapshot of how your team is doing and then make long-term decisions based on that snapshot. Because if you do that, you're always going to get yourself in trouble. And knee-jerk reactions, especially to when you're looking at making roster moves, are never a good idea. You have to take it in perspective of a long season, and it's why sometimes you look at organizations that we say they're doing nothing, and that's not true. They're gathering data and they're preparing to make an informed decision, because there's very few decisions that you make almost in any aspect of life. If you make a decision based on a very small sample size of whatever it is, your current budget or whatever, you make a decision based on that, you're going to be in trouble in the long term, because you have to gather enough data to be able to see what you can actually do. And the Rays are doing that on the baseball level. They're taking the time to make a decision. And I think they obviously made the right decision by waiting and not, trading anyone. And it's just become more obvious because people got injured. But even if they hadn't got injured, keeping that starting pitching depth is still really valuable, because even if they're not out for the year, at some point, Springs and Ras, we're going to probably need a spell at some point in the year to go down and take a few weeks off at some point in the year just to workload manage. And you need to have high value options to continue to win. So I think it's very clear they made the right decision. And I would recommend everyone who is looking, whenever you're looking to trade someone or trade something, take a look before you put that tweet out, before you say that you want to do this. Look at whatever is informing your decision to say, I want to trade this person, I want to do this with the organization. look at what the sample size is that is the basis of your opinion. And if it's anything less than like a third of the season, you should probably wait a little bit longer before you express that because you're premature.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb to follow, and to focus on, turning the page here to the offense during that series. It was quiet, but they were tired, and they were able to find just enough energy to steal that third game between a couple of home runs from Brandon Lau and Jose Siri. Jalen Beeks somehow slams the door, and actually his final out there is the well, I guess he just so Jalen Beeks extended the Rays bullpen scoreless streak to 10.2 innings with that final out in the series. So the Rays bullpen has not allowed a run in over almost 11 innings now. They haven't given up a run since Saturday of last week. So it's been a full week. Didn't give up any runs in that Sunday game against the shootout versus the Dodgers there, and they didn't give up any runs in the Cubs series. Cubs offense isn't very good, but for a Rays bullpen that has been, I I think they're closer to middle of the pack than they are bottom of the barrel, but they're still, they've been below average in their results. I think they have all the pieces to turn it around, but for this bullpen to put up 10.2 consecutive scoreless innings, like that's pretty cool and kind of significant. Kevin Cash has been piecing things together. I guess I did say I want to talk about the offense, but then I talked about the bullpen. But yeah, anything from game 3 that you liked in the actual game, in the only game in that series that was kind of fun?
I liked the home runs from Brandon Lau and Jose Siri. I love any time that Brandon Lau hits a home run. It just makes me happy. And I think that he is like, I feel like for a couple weeks now, we're waiting for it to start to turn the corner with Brandon. And you put out a very good tweet last week, I think, making the note that May is consistently Brandon's worst month every single year. And when you look at his stats this year compared to his 40 homer year, they're almost identical. So I'm just sort of sitting here with my bowl of popcorn, waiting for things to start getting fun for Brandon. And I think it's going to start happening very soon. And maybe that was the first taste of that. I'm excited to see what he does in this Boston series. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got some good numbers against Boston. Before we get to that, talking about that series, we do have 2 questions here from Twitter that kind of relevant to the Cubs series. Someone asked, should we be concerned with Wander's constant injuries, and could playing shortstop be a factor? Because he did sit out that final game with, I'm doing air quotes here, shoulder soreness, but we've seen the Rays double up on days off before with him. So, yeah, what do you think about Wander's constant injuries? Air quotes again.
So, first of all, I just want to point out to everyone again that Wander Franco is leading baseball in WAR. I'm just going to just put that out there before I even continue. He is leading all of baseball in WAR. Now, am I concerned with his injuries? I guess I've said this before. I don't think there's a problem with him playing shortstop. I think there might be a problem with him playing shortstop at Tropicana Field on that awful turf, which I've been saying for a long time now. If I was the owner of the Rays, I would be trying to find some way to improve that turf, because if my franchise cornerstone has to play on that every single time he plays at my stadium, we need to figure out some way to improve that, so that he's to improve the longevity of his career. So that's that. But I'm not concerned at all. The fact that he's had injuries and he's leading all of baseball in WAR, I think that speaks for itself.
No, yeah, me neither. I'm not zero concerned with his quote unquote injuries. If anything, it's injury management. So like getting a day off here and there, doubling up on the off days when possible, is so he doesn't have to take 10 days on the IL with a hamstring thing or shoulder soreness. Like,
yep.
if you listen to your body, which he's doing, and he's definitely communicating with the training staff, like, hey, I feel a little off today, maybe this is the time for a little break. Take the one day here and there, 2 days if you're doubling up an off day, so it doesn't turn into 10, 15, 2-3 weeks down the line. Like, this is how you stay consistent and strong during a full season. So I have no problem with him taking time off when needed, because you want him in the lineup in the meaningful games. And if he's sitting out in a game in May against the Cubs on the road, oh well, like who cares? Like just make sure you're able to play 4 in Boston here, because it's going to be cold and rainy most of the series. So one more question. This one is about Yandy. Somebody asked, well, actually they said Yandy is swinging and missing a lot on pitches out of the zone. That's just literally not true. So I kind of rephrased the question. Okay. Is Yandy starting to swing and miss too much? Is their new question that I decided they had, because the other thing wasn't true.
So we've talked about this a little bit, I think, and that's that, Yandy's approach of Yandy has changed his approach slightly to where the place at which his bat is impacting the ball has changed a little bit. He's getting the ball out in front of the plate a little bit more, as opposed to before he was letting it travel farther into the zone, which was giving him higher plate discipline, but impacting his power potential. So he has sacrificed a little bit of that plate discipline, which he still has incredible plate discipline, but he's sacrificed us a tiny portion of that to improve his power. And I will gladly take a few swings and misses for all the home runs and all of the slugging that he has done, and all the increased offensive production that we've gotten from a slugging perspective from him any day of the week. And the idea that he's swinging and missing more is just I don't think that's factually correct. I just don't think so. But I'm not worried at all. I'm not worried at all.
No, rolling averages, like 5, 10, 15 games, like nothing is showing that he's increasing his swing and miss rate. Like his zone contact rate this year is at 83.8%. His career is 83.6%. So where's he swinging and missing? I just curious. He's fine, totally fine. I love the new approach, and he's still maintaining his elite play discipline. So good for him. If you want to maintain your elite fashion sense, you can head on over to shop.rblrsports.com. You can buy some shirts from all your favorite Tampa Bay sports teams, especially the Rays. If you want 10% off your order, you can use promo code FLAPPY. That's FLAPPY. That is an exclusive promotion that is one time only, maybe. So make sure you head on over there now. Buy a shirt. It helps us help you, because we don't do like the Patreon stuff. We don't do like OnlyFans or anything. Like we're only Rays at RBLR Rays. So buy a shirt, and then we won't have to like sell our bodies or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like,
okay.
It's just we don't have to sell ourselves yet. So buy a shirt unless you want to see some terrible things on your Twitter timeline. Well, not terrible things, but hairy things, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that definitely. Let's prevent that at all costs. Let's go with that.
Oh yeah, the link is in the description, so just want to point that out. So save yourselves by doing that. Moving forward, we got a doubleheader going on today, a pair of day games on Sunday and Monday. So, and then we have a night game on Tuesday. So we actually don't get a travel day, but the Rays do get a nice little 2-day vacation, which should be enough to reset, I think. I think, the getting the off day here and then the off day after the series would have been more ideal, but you can't control that, so no point in worrying about it. What are you thinking for this series? Like, what do they need to do to come out of the series with a win, or at least maybe split against Boston? I don't know what you're looking for here, but what are the keys, and then what do you want out of the series?
Yeah, I think one of the keys is that like you said, that getting those 2 days, more than anything, resets your bullpen. And I think you're at a situation now where you have your bullpen fully loaded, ready to go. Everybody who's on the roster is available to pitch whatever leverage they need to. So I think that's awesome. I would like to win the series. A split is acceptable to me. I think winning the series is the ideal, because again, like you have these opportunities in these 4-game series to really step on their throat. Boston is kind of like teetering around down there, like in this sort of 9 to 10 wins back situation. If you can really step on their throats and put them down, I think that can really change their season and can really continue to boost us up. And I think it's a very winnable series. I think Boston, I mean, and they had a really rough blow yesterday because Chris Sale is going back on the IL, and it didn't sound good. I watched a little bit of that press conference. It did not look good. I feel really bad for him. He's awesome. He's such a fun pitcher to watch. He's so talented. I feel awful for him. The injuries are just continuing for him. It's plagued him the last several years here. Feel awful for him. And so I think Boston's a little vulnerable right now. And I think you could definitely take advantage of this series. I think they're bringing Kluber back up, who has been just getting teed off on the last couple of weeks. So I think you can take advantage of that. Garrett Whitlock, who we're seeing, I think we're seeing Garrett Whitlock today. He's no one in their rotation is really
in one of the games. Yeah.
One of the games. Yeah. No part of the rotation is super scary. Their offense is fine. It's pretty good. They have some players who are performing really well. And so it's definitely something where you're going to have to see good performances. But the benefit of that is we're going to have some of our best pitchers perform, and we're going to get McClanahan in this series where we probably would not have before. So I think we have a really good chance to win this series outright. Take a 3-1. A sweep would be awesome. 4-game sweeps, and especially considering the circumstances of this series, I doubt we're going to get a 4-game sweep. That would be really tough. But a 3-1 win, I think, is very, very possible. And I think the key to that is just going to be getting good length from our starters and getting out to early leads, because I think if you can kind of come into this series, especially in these first 2 games, kind of punch them in the mouth a little bit and get out to some early leads in these games, and then let the pitching run. I think you can really take the wind out of their sails early in the series and then just kind of coast. But I think coming in, after these days you've had off, everybody's rested and recharged. You come in with a strong lineup, you punch them in the mouth in the first couple innings, and then you just coast through the rest of the series.
Yeah, that would definitely be nice. I'd love to see a series win here. I think they're going to need to play strong defense as always and throw strikes as always. Those are the two things they've kind of built this team on since 2008. But this season, the Red Sox have been gifted the most runs by opposing defenses this year. I think it was 13. And the Rays defense has taken away the 4th most runs in baseball. So just play your usual solid defense. And this Red Sox offense is really kind of toothless. They do have the 3rd highest home slugging percentage in the league, but that's largely a part of the Green Monster, because when you take them out of Fenway, the Red Sox have the 22nd highest slugging. So they're actually a little bit behind Oakland on the road in terms of slugging on the road. So I said on the road twice. It sounded pretty redundant. But basically the point is they're going to hit the ball hard at home. They're going to hit it off that wall. And they're going to hit it over the wall. You can't really control that. But what you can control are the free passes, and you can't really afford to do that. So the Red Sox, they're going to hit their doubles and their home runs just because that's the nature of this ballpark. That Green Monster will benefit the Rays as well, but you can't let them hit those doubles and home runs with runners on base because you gave them a free runner. So just continue limiting the walks. Bullpen has had a 10.2 inning pitch scoreless streak, like I said. Maybe they can keep that up. It doesn't seem super likely just because that's not how baseball works. And because this is going to be, I feel like it could be a relatively high scoring series, especially compared to what we just saw against the Cubs. So yeah, play your regular strong defense and throw strikes, first pitch strikes. Don't give away free passes. And I think they'll give themselves an opportunity to win this series, but a split wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but just play good defense and throw strikes.
Yep. Look for Isaac Paredes to take advantage of that wall all series long. I would expect a couple of home runs, some hard doubles off that wall. Look for Paredes to just abuse that wall this entire series.
Nice. Just got confirmation. They are making it official. The Rays are calling up Cooper Criswell to be the 27th man today for the doubleheader, which is perfect timing because I had this question ready from Twitter. What are your thoughts on the Rays using Criswell in bulk right now over Yanni? Because the last couple of times it's been, against the Dodgers, and now today we're getting Criswell instead of Yanni Chirinos.
It's interesting. Because I would have said at the beginning of the season, I would rather see Yanni in those roles. However, I think Criswell's stuff is better than Yanni's stuff. So I think I think Yanni has been getting better results at the major league level, at least. But Criswell's stuff is better. So I think the Rays are saying we think this guy's stuff is better. We want to continue to give him a chance to show that off at the major league level and see if he can develop a little bit and use that. So I think that that's the reasoning behind it. I'm fine with it. I don't think that one is a significant upgrade over the other, really, other than the fact that I think Criswell's stuff is just better. So I mean, I'm fine with it. I like Yanni. I'd like to see him back up at some point, and I think we probably will. But I also don't think that giving Criswell some chances is a bad thing because he has some pretty good stuff, and I think they're kind of just letting that ride and seeing where it sticks.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see them as almost the same like pitcher for the same type of role. Like they're just eating innings essentially. I think a lot of people kind of have this like golden statue of Yanni Chirinos in their minds because of who he used to be before his elbow exploded twice. But I mean, he's okay. He has better stuff than Criswell. He's got a 102 stuff plus. Criswell has an 85, but Criswell's command is much better. So Yanni has a 95 pitching plus, which means he's been 5% below league average, and Criswell has a 106 pitching plus, meaning he's 6% better than league average this year. So that 11-point swing is kind of significant, which kind of leads me to think like the Rays value using quality over a name, which is kind of true with their organization as a whole. So if you can play, the Rays are going to let you play.
Yeah.
They don't really care what your name is. There's no like, coaches, guys on the team who are just there because of their names or whatever. But there's also the thing with Chirinos getting optioned that I think a lot of people don't really consider. So Yanni wasn't able to be recalled for 15 days following him getting optioned on, it was either the 17th or the 18th. So they couldn't recall him for the series against the Dodgers. Like Major League Baseball rules say he literally cannot be on the roster. Right. I think technically he could be called up today because when you're becoming the 27th man, that rule kind of goes out the window. But Criswell hasn't pitched in 6 days, maybe 7 days. I don't know, 6 or 7. Yanni pitched 5 days ago, so they're just going with the more rested arm because, like you said in your keys to the series, like we want to see some length from our pitchers. So I feel like this is an easy question to answer if you look at Fangraphs and look at the MLB rules page with options. So happy to do that Googling for you though. Whoever sent that one in. I don't even remember. I didn't put down the names of these this time, but you get the point.
Yeah. We're always happy to do the Googling for you. But yeah, I think it's definitely 6 of one, half a dozen of the other with these guys. They're providing they are valuable. They're providing very valuable innings for this team, but neither one is I don't think that either one of them is probably going to be on the postseason roster. And I think that's the perspective I like to put a lot of this stuff is when we look at these debates between these players. At the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is not going to affect the postseason roster, except for the fact that these innings are valuable and we're saving the innings from arms that we do need on the postseason roster. So, I appreciate that. But other than that, it's definitely kind of semantics at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. And, speaking of arms, we're going to switch it up this week and do our arm of the week first. I know we have the same players for both of them. So start us off. Who was our arm of the week this week?
Our arm of the week is has been a little maligned recently, very unfairly so, but had 2 just absolute grown man outings this week, and that is Jason Adam, Mr. Two Names himself. Some spots where I did not expect him to be in the game at all. I just did not expect him. I was like, "Well, they're going to use him." I'm just a little surprised here, but he had a grown man 2-inning save that very impressive stuff. He's striking guys out again at a high clip. He's the best reliever on the team right now. At this very moment, he's the best reliever on this team, and it's not close.
Yeah, he really. With Fairbanks getting hurt warming up, which by the way we'll talk about in a little bit, but he's pretty much fine. But Jason Adam had to stay in, and he got that 2-inning save. 2 innings, 4 strikeouts, and just 2 massive cojones with Jason Adam. Yeah, he is the guy right now. That was probably the coolest pitching performance I've seen this year from not just
Yeah.
any pitcher like on the Rays, but maybe in baseball. Like he really went out there and he took over the game. And
Mhm.
it's pretty rare for a relief pitcher to take over a game, but I guess you need more than an inning to kind of do that. But he did. He took
Yeah.
that game. It was an 11-10 game, and he closed it out over 2 innings against the best team in the National League with one of the best offenses. Like
Yep.
that was crazy. That was so cool.
Yep.
So yeah, good for him. Grown man outing, and he had a good game against the Cubs too,
Yeah.
In that series. But yeah, I really love that game against the Dodgers. And then moving on to our bat of the week here, we both had Jose Siri. What'd you like about Siri this week?
I mean, what I love about series that we're continuing to see the power just be there. The batting average is not going to be there. The on base percentage is like average, but like he's like over the last week he slugged 667. He's just hitting the ball hard every time he puts contact on it. It's super fun to watch him pimp the home runs. Really, really fun. And then just the speed on the base paths as well makes him so dangerous anytime he's on base. He's just like he has this element of danger whenever he's at the plate because if he hits it hard, it can go over the wall. And if he gets on base, he's super dangerous when he's on, when he's on base, and it just adds an element of danger to the bottom of the lineup that I think a lot of organizations would kill to have. That your ninth hole hitter is a legitimate threat, and you cannot just you have to take him seriously because he was the difference in that Cubs game, and he's been the difference on a couple games where he's had some really timely home runs to give the Rays some runs when they needed it, and he's consistently done that from the bottom of the lineup. I'm going to tentatively call him the best 9-hole hitter in baseball. I don't know that I can actually back that up, but that's going to be my current title for him is best 9-hole hitter in baseball.
Yeah, he had 2 hits this week, but they were a triple and a home run. Just great stuff. Like he's exciting. The home run literally won the game for the Rays. It had a .33 win percentage added in that game, and that was the highest among any player in that game. So Wander definitely had the better week, but just based on that final game against the Cubs, he kind of helped us steal that one. So I feel like I had to kind of give him the bat of the week. I think he's definitely one of the better number 9-hole hitters in the league. Yesterday he was supposed to bat, I think 6th in the lineup, so that was kind of interesting from Kevin Cash. We'll see if he sticks with that today. But he's awesome at the bottom of the order because he just kind of the expectations from your 8 and 9 guys are usually so low that when Siri is putting up a whatever like 110 WRC plus this year, I think. Let me check real quick so I don't mess that up. He is at 141. My bad. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's really just mashing from down there, striking out a ton. But I don't expect him to keep that up, but who cares? He's fun. I like it.
Yeah.
So good pick for that one.
Yeah, he's electric, and we could probably give Wander the bat of the week every week because he is maybe the best player in baseball right now when you consider everything he does for the team and how he affects the lineup. But Siri is just electric, and it's always fun when you have a player like that on your team, and it's fun to see him kind of come into himself a little bit this season and having a good season.
Yeah, it's been fun for sure. And I just wanted to move on to the injury stuff real quick here as we wrap this up. Sean Armstrong, he's expected to be activated either today or tomorrow, like we said. Josh Fleming, elbow soreness could be a phantom IL thing just because they conveniently needed an extra roster spot when he started to not feel good yesterday. So we'll see about that. He's going to get an MRI, but it feels like I reached out to a couple people who have some access to things that I don't. So I'll see if I can get some information about Fleming, but it just on the surface level, it feels like it's not that big of a deal. Phantom IL possibly. And then Pete Fairbanks is the other one. Like we said, he got hurt warming up. Hip inflammation, never had that before. So he's going to get an injection and he's probably fine. Thankfully, no arm, no oblique, no lat things.
Nope.
No, I don't really feel concerned about him, but we will know more, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, something like that. But it seems like he's going to be okay. Not really concerned about Fairbanks there. Any other injuries or things that I missed here?
Don't think so. No real updates on any of the long-term injuries that we have. A lot of those longer-term injuries we're still just kind of in the waiting game to find out more. So I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Oh, Littell is going to start a rehab thing soon, but I'm pretty sure he was on a phantom IL stint, like working on something. I think we're going to see some kind of like different usage or pitch shapes coming out of this IL stint for him. Could be completely wrong, but a cranky shoulder is that's a questionable IL diagnosis. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Last thing here, we do have some miscellaneous news. Junior Caminero did get promoted to Double-A recently. He's hitting with Montgomery. Not off to a great start, but he's 20 years old, playing in Double-A, third base and a little bit of shortstop. So good for him. Really excited to see him maybe even make it to Triple-A by the end of the year. But I don't think so. But, we'll see. And we did have a question related to Caminero. He said out of Junior Caminero, Curtis Meade, and Kyle Manzardo, if you could only keep one, who would you keep? Like, you got to trade away the other guys for some reason. I don't know.
Ooh, that is a tough one. If we're talking about like for this season, probably I would keep Manzardo. Long term, it's probably either Caminero or Meade. So I'm gonna say that if I had to lose all but one, I would probably keep Manzardo, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they are all about like Caminero is like the highest risk because he's the furthest away from the majors, and then Meade has like slightly more defensive versatility than Manzardo, but he's not a great defender. Like Caminero could be like an average, maybe above average defender. Meade, probably average at best at, third, second, first. Manzardo is first base DH only, but he's probably the most polished bat of the three. So I don't think there's really much of a huge difference between these three. I think they're all about like the same value and would provide the same contributions with their bats at the major league level. The most Rays-like player, though, is probably Caminero, just because he can actually play on both sides of the ball. But I don't really have a preference. I think it doesn't really matter. I'm going to try not to fall in love with prospects anymore. I really like Delika Williams. I think he's better than his ranking shows, and he's got really good underlying stats. So happy we got a good pitcher for him, but in this case here, I don't think it really. I think they're all about the same with Caminero, Meade, and Manzardo. All really good players.
They are, and it's kind of cool that we have three really good players that kind of can fit the same archetype. Because again, like if you are in a scenario where you do need to make a move, you do have three players who are probably going to be pretty high value, and you could move if you needed to. I don't think they will, but if you had to, you have some high value players that you could move, that you do have depth in the organization, so you're not going to gut your organizational depth if you move them. So that's another one of the reasons why the Rays are, farm system is so strong.
Yeah, it's cool that we have like good hitting prospects, because usually it's always been like, glove first or pitching prospects, but the Rays have been drafting and developing pretty well lately. So I'm excited to see that, come to fruition. But every time we have like a trade or a roster crunch or like a minor league trade, I get a little bit more excited that Greg Jones is still in the organization. Like, he keeps getting the opportunity. He's been promoted to AAA. He's actually playing like fairly well, I guess relatively well considering his career numbers. Pretty good StatCast stuff from Greg Jones so far in Durham. It's interesting that he keeps surviving. It's kind of like with Luke Raley, like back in like November, December. It's like, okay, he's probably not going to be around that much longer. And then he keeps surviving the cuts. He's surviving the transactions and roster shuffling. So, I don't know. Just the Alika Williams stuff made me think about like Greg Jones and that he's still in the organization despite like not fully living up to his potential, but he's getting there. So, anything else before we wrap it up here?
You don't think so? I'm just excited. I mean, it's probably not great as far as they're like, I don't think playing a doubleheader is great for anyone's like health necessarily, but it's very entertaining to watch. So I'm excited for that. More two baseball games in a day. I'm excited.
Yeah, in that first game, we've got Trevor Kelly opening, followed by Cooper Criswell, usually right after, but they always say at some point he'll come in. We just got the lineups. It's going to be Yandy, Franco, Brandon Lau, Rosarena, Josh Lowe, Jose Siri at 6 again,
okay,
and then Luke Raley, Bethencourt, and Walls at the 9 hole. So really I think that's pretty much the same lineup as yesterday. Yeah, no, that feels like a pretty good lineup. So
and then you got Brady.
Should be a fun day.
Really, really good lineup.
But thank you everybody for listening. Make sure you follow, share, subscribe, like us, do whatever. We are at RBLR Sports on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, MySpace. Ask Jeeves. Give us 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app if you can review it on there. If not, petition the app developers to let you leave a review for our podcast, but only if it's 5 stars. And just thank you all for your continued support and affection, and sometimes lack of affection. We appreciate all of it.
We accept it all. Raise up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.